Alright, welcome back to the daily drawing. Today we're going to be drawing a frog. I really like frogs. Alright, so the first thing that I would start with is just like a very simple shape to kind of make up the body and the head all together. They have necks. For some of them are more noticeable than others, but in this case we're seeing it from front view, so it's not super noticeable. So to start off with, I'm just going to draw kind of like an eggish shape. So it's going to be kind of a little bit pointier on one side, a little bit rounder on the other. You can also just start with a simple oval or a circle, and that's fine as well. So I'm going to go with kind of this round shape that I have here, to where it's a little bit flatter on the top and a little bit more rounded at the bottom, like this. So it looks kind of like an egg that's someone tilted over onto its side. All right. Now that we have the egg shape done, then what I would suggest doing is kind of help figure out where the head is at in place of the body. So because it's coming at us, it's kind of sort of foreshortened where the head's in front and overlapping the body. So this right here is the top of the head, if I zoom in here. Yeah, so here we can see that this right here is the top of the head, and then it's kind of like about halfway into the body-ish, and that's going to be where the jaw is. So it's a little bit of a tricky shape. Here, let me turn it sideways. There we go. You can see more of the body here. All right, so in order to get this illusion, what I would suggest doing is let's draw this kind of lump right here to kind of indicate where that's at. And so it's about halfway-ish on the body. So I'm going to go to my body, and about halfway-ish, I'm going to put a little kind of parenthesis that's going to represent the corner of this particular frog's jaw. That way I know the placement of the rest of the features of the face. So sometimes whenever you have something that's like weird of a perspective, it helps if you find something to use as kind of like a marker dot or a placement dot. All right, so from here, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go ahead and start with the like the shape above the eyes, like the eyebrow areas first. And then I'm going to come back and do those eyes. So slightly off to the side. So this is where we just drew that little parenthesis. I'm going to go off to the side. And then above that, I'm going to draw a pretty big frown like this. That's going above that parenthesis area off to the side. So you don't want it to be like right here because that's a little too close to the jaw. So make sure it's a little bit scooted over and then above, but make sure it stays inside the body because it's kind of sort of tilted forward. So it's not going to be outside of the body yet. All right. Once you get that eyebrow bump, then what we want to do is we want to go to the other side of the body right here. So if we see this, and it's a little hard to see because the colors have such low contrast, but this right here is that bump we just drew. So now what we're going to do is we can see this egg shape here, but then we have this bump sticking out. So what we want to do is we want to go across from the top of the bump here, and that's where we're going to draw this bump right here. So it's going to be kind of like a greater than less than sign that's kind of curvy on the edge, or you can call it like a parenthesis that's a little bit flatter. So I'm going to go from the top of this eyebrow, go across until I get to the edge of the body. Once I get to the edge of the body, I'm going to kind of go out a little bit like this and kind of a flat line. And then I'm going to curve it down until it touches the face like this. So essentially like maybe like the letter C is a good way to kind of associate it as well. All right, very important though, if you have taken it too far and if this thing is sticking out like really, really far, you might want to scoot it back in because you don't want this to like look like a snail or a slug eye because that would be a little bit awkward. All right, so now that we have the two brows, something we can do is we can go ahead and kind of define the mouth area. If you look here, we can see that right below the brow, we can see this right here is the start of the top of the like muzzly area, and then it curves all the way until we get right below that weird little indentation that we drew at the very beginning. So to do this, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to go a little bit on the inside of that indent, and then I'm just going to draw a really big smile. Notice that it kind of goes down flat straight first, and then it curves up. So to do that, I'm going to start right here, just a little bit on the inside of that eye shape. I'm going to go out, kind of flat-ish, just a short distance. And then once I think I'm ready for it, then I'm just going to do an exaggerated curve. My goal is to go from here all the way until I get right before that little indentation thing, okay? So if it helps, put a dot here and here. That way you know that you're just going to connect that with a slight smile. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a very slight smile and connect those two like this. And you can even curve it up a little bit if you want him to look like he's smiling a bit, and that can make it look pretty cute. All right, so now that I have my exaggerated smile, then the next thing that I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and do well, should we do the eyes first? Yeah, let's go ahead and do the eyes. We don't do the eyes this quickly, but we're going to go ahead and go for it. All right, so above the mouth area, and somewhere below this eyebrow bump, we're going to have the eye shape. You can draw it as a perfect circle, or you can draw it as a slightly wonky circle. Looking at this picture and kind of like tracing my pencil over it, it's not a perfect one. It's a little bit on the like wonky side, but if you want to draw a perfect circle, that's fine. But notice that it does get pretty close to the mouth, so I need to make sure that it goes down at least about yay far. So just a little bit to where it almost touches the mouth, and it gets pretty close to this little indentation side. So it's not directly below the center of this bump, it's actually closer to the side of that bump. So really pay attention to that as you're drawing. So if you'll watch and see where I put this, I'm gonna start right here. I'm gonna first do kind of like a really big parenthesis. I'm gonna get close to the top, or close to the side here. And then I'm just gonna curve it down like this, and then just connect it all back together. So it's not a perfect circle, it's a little bit wonky shape. But that's okay. And you can exaggerate this right here if you want him to make him look like he's angry frog. You can make that more of a diagonal line, and now it looks like he's determined and about to attack a bug or something. Or you could just make it more rounded to make him look cuter. So it's kind of up to you what kind of expression you want on your frog. I like cute things, so I'm just going to make mine rounded. All right, so notice that it's closer to this side. There's a bigger gap right here. That's what I was talking about as far as like the distancing. So that's just going to help you place the anatomy a little bit more accurately. Oh, my phone died. Oh, there it goes. Okay. So once you have this eye done, if you'll notice on this picture, the frog's eye is kind of like an ellipse, but it's sideways. I didn't know that about frogs, so that's pretty interesting. But you can draw any kind of shape you want to on the inside here. So I'm just going to draw, all I'm doing is a frowny face and a smiley face. So just a frowny face followed up by a smiley face. I'm going to do like that little highlight that I usually do on the inside here and fill it in. Now, if you want to, you can also draw like, I'm just going to draw like little circles on the inside of the eyes. That way I know that this was part of the iris. So this right here, if you are coloring it, this would be the colored part, and this right here would be the black part, because this is the pupil and that would be the iris. That way it doesn't look like there's just like a really deep wrinkle around the eye, because that would look a little weird. All right, moving on to this next eye. We see a tiny bit of it, but not very much. So all you'd have to do to draw that is you just draw like a very thin parenthesis, like this, kind of sticking out from that other kind of bulge for the eyebrow, and then just kind of like do like a little line, kind of splitting it in half, and then we can just fill the top part in black. That way it makes it look as though that was part of the eye. And feel free to tweak that any direction that you want, or if you feel like it sticks out too far, feel free to push it back in a little bit, or if you need to make the eyebrow a little bit more defined, you can kind of like tweak it until you're pretty satisfied with it. But yeah, okay, so now that I have my eyes done, I'm gonna go ahead and move on. So something that I do see on this frog is the neck is part of the lower jaw. So if I see that this right here is where the lower jaw starts, it curves all the way down into almost the bottom of the body right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start right about here at the end of the mouth. I'm just going to do a little bit of a curve, and then once I get below the mouth corner piece, that's where I'm going to kind of curve it up just a little bit, so that I know that this was the bottom jaw and it's not just part of the belly or anything. So this is going to be that bottom jaw area, in which if you're going for more realism, you can add more details like these wrinkles and stuff to kind of help that feel more separated. But for now, I think I'm just going to leave this because I think that looks cute. Do they have noses? Where are their noses at? Frog, what is wrong with, I don't see a nose. Okay, I guess they don't have noses. I don't know. I don't see their nose, so I'm not going to draw a nose. All right, that's weird. Okay, so now that I have the head done, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to do the leg first. I'm going to do this leg up here first because it's closest to me. Usually a good rule of thumb is if you're drawing something that has a lot of overlaps like this, draw the thing that's closest to you first and then add the things that are behind it. That way it makes it a little bit easier to draw all those overlaps. All right, so this seems like a little weird shape, but I'm going to break it down for you. So the first thing I would start with is I would go below this curve that we drew before. I'm going to go below that a little bit down here in between this curve and in between the mouth area. And then I'm going to put a little marker dot. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to do a dramatic frown. So it's going to be almost a diagonal first. Then I'm going to frown it down until it gets outside of the body like this. So diagonal line, frown it down. And then once you frown it down, kind of make it go a little bit flat like this. All right, so this is going to give us the outer shape of the leg. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do the inside of the leg. So I don't want to start right here on the corner, but I want to start a little bit on the inside. So right about here is where I'm going to start the top of my foot. So this is going to be a slight diagonal line facing towards the body. Once you touch the body, then we're going to make it go out kind of flat. And it's okay if it touches the bottom of your neck, or you can leave a gap. That's kind of up to you how you want that particular part to look. I think I personally want to leave a gap. That way I can get that little indentation down here for the belly. So you draw that whichever position that you want it in. I'm going to lean mine forward a little bit. All right, now to make this part a little easier, because these toes are a little bit tricky, is I'm just gonna draw stick toes first. So there's one toe, there's two toe, and then I'm gonna have my third toe go out in this direction. That way I know that they're gonna be separate. So drawing stick toes first will help us with the alignment of the rest of the foot and the body. All right, now that I have my stick toes, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to draw very lightly, just kind of ovally shapes at the front of these toes, like this. And on this one though, because it's gonna get overlapped, I'm just gonna draw half of the oval because I know that this other half is gonna get covered by the foot. So I'm not gonna draw the whole oval. If you want to, you can. I'm just personally not gonna do it because I don't like having to erase more than what I need to. All right, so now that I have my rounded toes, if you look here, you'll see that it's kind of like an upside down V, kind of separating out the toes. So to do this, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the outside of the toe, I'm gonna go up until it gets closer to the inside of the body, and then I'm just gonna bring it back down and then touch on the outside of that kind of circle-y shape, like this. Now on this one though, I don't see that V because the toes are physically like overlapping each other because it looks like they're touching maybe. So I'm not gonna draw a V there. I just might scoot this line up a little bit to make it a little bit thicker. And then you can erase the inside of these digits or you can leave them there. On this picture, the frog has really wrinkly fingers, so you can see a line there. So it's up to you if you wanna erase them or if you wanna leave them, that you can make that decision. All right, so to finish up the leg, all we really need to do is we need to do this crease where the arm is kind of overlapping the lower arm. So all this is we're just going to start at the top of the hand, and then we're just going to do a parenthesis going inside the shoulder about yay far. So don't touch the edge, just get close to touching the edge, okay? All right, and that'll make up our first foot. Now something that I do see on the top of the hand here, we can see that I don't know if it's the muscle pushing it down or if it's just the belly is a little chubbier, but we can see like a little bit of a curve connecting the throat to this part right here. If this hand touched, you don't have to draw this part, but if you do see it, I'm just gonna draw a frown to kind of touch those together. That way it kind of connects the foot to the throat area. All right, so there's our front foot. Now let's go ahead and do our other front foot. We're gonna ignore this blurry leg in the background for now. We'll come back to that. All right, so for this front foot right here, all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start, let's see where it starts. All right, so it starts right here on the nose area, which seems a little weird, but that's just, we're gonna trust the picture. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna drop it down and then curve it back in kind of a triangle, which seems a little weird. So it's kind of like a greater than or less than sign, like this, almost like it has its tongue sticking out or something, which is cute. All right, then what I'm gonna do is I'm going to go from the outside, I'm gonna go down and then out like this. So it's kind of like a greater than or less than sign facing the opposite way. And then I have, oh, by the way, I'm just drawing the stick fingers first. So here's one stick finger. I'm gonna go about center. I'm gonna draw another stick finger. And then our final stick finger is right there below the belly, right there. All right, or neck in this case. All right, once I have my stick fingers established, I'm just gonna draw those big oval shapes on the edges of those stick fingers, like this. That way I can get my toes established a little bit, which I think I'm drawing my feet a little too big, but that's okay. It's pretty fun to draw them in different sizes. All right, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm just going to connect them together. So I do see a V shape in between these toes, and I see a V shape in between these toes. This toe is a little bit bent outwards because they're putting more pressure on it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna first start off tracing this back until it gets kind of across from this kind of like bend in the foot. And then I'm just gonna go up until it almost touches that weird triangle we drew before. And then I'm just gonna curve it back down. All right, then I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. So go up and then just curve it back down. Now you might end up with a line in between the foot here. If that bothers you, just erase it. And then if you want to, you can erase part of this line up here. I wouldn't fully erase it because there is a pretty distinctive wrinkle there, but you can erase part of that line if you don't want it to look so solid. And now it looks like the frog is kind of resting its weight on its front toes, which looks pretty cute. Okay, so now that I have my toes all finished up on the front, now I can move on to the back legs. I'm actually gonna go ahead, since I'm over here, I'm gonna go ahead and draw this other leg over here, which is gonna look really, really weird because it looks like it's just growing out of the side of the face, which is very strange, but we're gonna go for it anyway. All right, so to start off with is we're just gonna draw the thigh. So it looks like it's coming out right below the eye. We're just gonna draw a big frowny face like this, not too big though. Because it's further back in the picture, that's why this leg seems so much smaller, is because it's further back. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to draw little stick feet again. So 1, 2, and 3 little stick feet. And then once I have those stick feet done, I'm gonna do the little oval-y thing at the tip. 1, 2, 3. And then after you do the oval-y thing, then you can just do the V thing. We're gonna go up, there's 1 V, there's 2 V, and then I'm just gonna go up and then touch the body, and that can kind of finalize that last toe. And then of course, as always, if you want to, you can erase those extra lines back there. All right, so now I have my 2 front feet, I have my back foot that's kind of further in the back, and then I have one more thing to do. Sweet, this is actually a pretty easy drawing. All right, one thing I would say before I do this back leg though, I do see that my body is a little bit too small. I do need to make it stick out a little bit further, and there's also a little bit of a bump. I don't know if you guys can see it, but there's a little bit of bump on the back of the body. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna first kind of alter my shape. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna continue right here on the back of the body. I'm just gonna go up a little bit higher in a frown, and then I'm just gonna curve that back to where my other body would have touched right here. So this is just going to add a little bit more size to it, and it's also going to add a little bit more definition to the spine because they have that kind of curve to the back of their body. If your body was already big enough, you might not have to do this. That kind of depends on how you started off with your original shape. All right, so now that I have the back of my frog's body, now I can go ahead and do the back leg. So if I look at it right here, and which it's blurry in the photo because the artist that took the photograph was probably using like a focus type of lens thing. Hi, Teddy. All right, so to do this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually start with, oh, here, I just noticed that my belly was too fat. I'm just trimming it down, sorry. All right, I'm going to start on my belly right here. And if you're kind of comparing it, it's going to be across from the eye, by the way. So if you go across from the eye, that's where I'm going to start this leg. I'm going to start off with drawing a really big teardrop that goes down like this. They have, if you've ever seen frog legs, they have like really big back muscles. Now, if we were drawing it from side view, this would be like a lot bigger, but because it's from front view, that's why it seems so much smaller. All right, so after I draw my big leg, then what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna draw my stick feet. So there's 1, there's 2, I hear you, love, and there's 3. All right, so now that I got my 3 stick feet, sorry, my dog's barking at me, I'm gonna draw my 3 toes. So there's 1 toe, 2 toe, and 3 toe. All right, and then to finish it up, I'm just gonna draw my V's. Like this, so going up in a V. It's okay if it touches that leg because what's happening is the leg is overlapping the foot a little bit, and so that's why it looks kind of awkward, is that it's sitting on top of it. So it's kind of like if you're looking at your finger like this and you bend it and then you look at it forward, you don't see like this part right here, you only see this part and this part because it's being overlapped, so you don't see it in that angle. So that's why we draw it the way that we do. All right, so then afterwards you can erase, if you have any of those bones on the inside, you can erase those little bone things. And then there we have our little frog guy. Definitely I would suggest erase any of the stuff on the inside that you don't need. Do keep the eyelid thing and do keep that little smile because that helps separate, hey buddy, that helps separate the rest of it. Keep this line though. Usually we get rid of part of the thigh line, but we do want to keep that because the belly does in fact overlap that particular part. All right, so there's a frog. If you want to add some shading and stuff to it or some textures or some like colors and stuff, that would be great. For this particular one, I'm just gonna, if you want to call it done at this point, definitely feel free to. I think that looks very effective. There's a couple things that I haven't really gone back and fixed, but I think that's fine. So if you want to add designs and patterns to it, for this particular frog, is it a tree frog? Anyone that knows frogs, let me know what this is. It's really cute. I think I've played with frogs that look similar to this before whenever I lived in Louisiana a lot, so I don't know, but yeah, so if you know what this frog's name is, or if you know what kind of species the frog is, totally let me know, because I love frogs. My little sister really hates frogs, though. Like, I think there's one time that I threw a frog on her, and I think she still won't talk to me. I'm just kidding. She will, but I don't think she's forgiven me for it. So I'm just adding a couple little textures here and there to kind of indicate where the color markings are on the frog. I really like poison dart frogs, look really cool. So, but yeah, okay, so here's a couple markings just here and there, just give a little bit more of a froggy texture. Now, you don't have to draw every single like bump and scrape on this thing, because otherwise that might take you forever. But if you wanted to add kind of like scaly textures by drawing like little C's, I draw little C's for scales just because it makes it a little bit faster and it makes it have a little bit of texture. So if you wanted to add some C shapes that you draw pretty quickly for just like a little bit of a scaly texture, and as usual, like don't add it over the entire body unless you're just going for like hyper realism, but if you add it in the places that have shadow, that can just help make it pop out just a little bit more. And it can tell you that it's not a perfectly smooth frog, that this frog does in fact have a little bit of a like scaly texture to it. All right, so from here on I'm just going to add a little bit of shading just because it kind of finalizes the drawing. I think it looks nice. So especially on the feet area, because there's a lot of overlap, if you make it to where the back feet that are being overlapped by the body get a little bit darker than the body, it really helps sell the illusion that this frog is being overlapped by itself and that it has a little bit more of a 3D look to it, which is always really nice to do. So that's why I'm shading the back feet a little bit darker. And notice I made this one a little bit darker than the one in front. So definitely adding some shading really helps make the whole picture pop off the page, and it makes it just a little bit more finalized, which is I always like doing. I just think it looks nice. All right, so now that I've got my shading done, I think that I could call that done. Which, of course, you can continue working on it. You can continue adding more to it. You can add, like, I don't know, like maybe he's chilling on a leaf or something. I don't know. So especially with this, something this small, it'd be fun to add a background to it. All right, well, I hope you had fun, and I would love to see what you did. All right, have a good day. Bye.